Two tourists are about to make the biggest mistake of their lives. After a wild night out, they oversleep. By the time they wake up, their tour group has already left. They end up finding Tucker's experiences, an offer to swim with sharks. Greg loves the idea. Heather, not so much. Tucker, the captain, seems friendly enough, but there's something about him that just doesn't feel right. He's fascinated that no one knows where they are. Even a dog barks furiously at him. But the couple, they ignore all the warning signs. They get on the boat without telling a soul. Out at sea, Tucker tells his story. At 7 years old, a shark attacked him and let him go. He survived, but with a massive scar. Soon after, Tucker stops the boat and throws a bucket full of chum into the water to attract the sharks. Greg tries to reassure Heather, but it doesn't work. When she sees the fins slicing through the surface, Heather loses it. Full of regret, she adamantly refuses to go on. When Greg can't calm her down, Tucker steps in. He takes her hand and tells her to close her eyes and breathe slowly. Then he starts singing a nursery rhyme. Greg gets the strategy and joins in. Heather, confused at first, ends up laughing at the absurdity of the scene. That laugh washes away her fear, and she finally dares to take the plunge. Soon, both of them are inside the cage. However, panic returns when she sees dozens of sharks with jaws full of teeth surrounding them. Luckily, Greg is by her side and calms her down by offering his arm. Little by little, Heather's perception changes. She stops seeing them as killer beasts and begins to appreciate their beauty. When she gets to the surface, she's wearing a huge smile. But the joy is short-lived. Without warning, Tucker attacks Greg and violently throws him into the sea, where he's devoured by the sharks. Heather screams in terror, but it's already too late. Now she's in the middle of the ocean, trapped with a serial killer. Meanwhile, two people from completely different worlds are about to meet. Zephyr, a drifter living out of her car, and Moses, a successful real estate agent. Moses has walked 10 blocks without finding anyone willing to help, and Zephyr seems just as unwilling. He could keep looking, but trying to charm the attractive drifter sounds far more entertaining. He catches her stealing and blackmails her. He'll keep quiet if she helps him jumpstart his car. The tactic works. Zephyr reluctantly agrees and leads him to her vehicle. But what really catches her eye is the surfboard inside. As they talk, they discover they share a passion for surfing, and even the same taste in music. These shared interests start to break down Zephyr's walls. The conversation soon turns into attraction, and by nightfall, the tension culminates in the back of Zephyr's truck, parked outside Moses's house. The next morning, Zephyr admits she's a girl with no direction, completely alone, and not exactly friendly. Even so, Moses seems genuinely interested in her. To prove it, he wakes before dawn, heads to the kitchen, and makes breakfast. But when he returns, disappointment hits. Zephyr and her truck are gone. She left without a word, and she's about to face the consequences. Zephyr is ready to surf, but there's one problem. She left her fin key at Moses's place and doesn't have a spare. Her only option is to ask the owner of the other truck if he has one she can borrow. Seeing no one around, Zephyr decides to steal it instead, only to be caught by none other than Tucker himself. The circumstances couldn't be better for him. A girl alone, with no one in sight. Yet Tucker simply hands her a key and walks away. Zephyr doesn't take long to receive a message from Moses. They start chatting, and Zephyr, absorbed in the conversation, lets her guard down. Big mistake. Out of nowhere, Tucker appears behind her and pulls a bag over her head. Zephyr struggles desperately, but it's useless. Within seconds, she's completely unconscious. Tucker injects her with a sedative, locks her truck, and hauls her to his own. He tapes her mouth shut, binds her tightly, and stuffs her into a large suitcase. By dawn, he's at his boat. The dog barks again, sensing what Tucker is hiding inside the suitcase. Ignoring it, he drags Zephyr inside and locks her up. Meanwhile, Moses finally finds Zephyr's truck. He calls her phone, only to hear it ringing inside. Immediately, he wonders where she is and why she would leave both her truck and her phone behind. inside the boat, Zephyr wakes up disoriented and quickly faces a horrifying discovery. Her wrist is handcuffed. Next to her lies Heather. Both women are locked in, and a nauseating stench rises from a bucket in the corner. Zephyr screams at the top of her lungs, but it's useless. They're behind a sealed door that muffles their voices into faint whispers. But that's not the worst part. On the wall, there's a name scrawled in black, confirming Zephyr's worst fear. They are not the first captives here. Heather tells her what happened to her boyfriend, and together they lose all hope of rescue. Like Heather, Zephyr is convinced no one will come looking for her. She's wrong. When Moses learns Zephyr's truck was towed, he wastes no time going to the police to report her missing. Their brief time together doesn't give them much to go on, but an investigation is launched nonetheless. Zephyr refuses to give up. Thanks to her time in an orphanage, she learned how to pick locks. All she needs is a long, thin piece of metal, something she finds in Heather's bra. Heather hands it over without hesitation, covering herself with a sheet. Zephyr starts working on the handcuffs, but the door suddenly opens. Tucker steps in with a tray of food and water. Heather refuses to take anything from her captor, but the unbearable heat wears her down, and she finally drinks. That's when Tucker notices something strange. Heather's unusual insistence on keeping herself covered. Before he can investigate, Zephyr distracts him by demanding her meal and draining the glass completely. It works. Tucker leaves. Zephyr immediately gets back to work, but suddenly she starts sweating. Her breathing quickens, her vision blurs, and Heather collapses. Tucker had spiked the drink with a sedative. Moments later, he returns to find Zephyr fighting to stay awake, but she loses the battle. When Zephyr regains consciousness, she's outside, shivering in the dark. Beside her, Heather is strapped into a harness. Suddenly, the lights snap on. A camera points directly at the water. Tucker checks that everything is in place, then snips a lock of Heather's hair. He flips a switch, raising Heather high above the water. Both women scream. Zephyr pleads for her life. Heather is too terrified to speak. Beneath her, sharks circle, drawn by the chum Tucker tossed into the sea. 300 razor-sharp teeth and 2,500 pounds of muscle wait for the feast. Everything is ready for the show. Tucker hits the switch, lowering Heather toward the water. Soon, half her body is submerged. There's a moment of silence. Then, the shark strikes. Zephyr's screams echo as Tucker films every second with twisted delight. Moments later, silence falls. That night, Zephyr carves her name next to Heather's. But she notices something else. The name she saw earlier is not alone. Others are hidden beneath patches of white paint. Tucker, meanwhile, celebrates, drinking, dancing, savoring the kill. He took Heather's hair for a reason. With thread and glue, he carefully binds it, placing it alongside the footage of her death, then stores it with the rest of his tapes. It's revealed that Heather and Zephyr are far from the first victims. There have been dozens before them. The next morning, Tucker visits Zephyr with more food and water, but the same trick won't work twice. Zephyr kicks the tray away and hurls insults at him, calling him a coward who kills women because his mother never paid him any attention as a child. Her words seem to strike a nerve, but Tucker restrains himself. Before leaving, he makes the mistake of telling her to use the toilet. Zephyr, who until now had refused to use it, suddenly realizes something. She breaks off a sharp piece from the bucket, gripping it tightly. Moments later, Tucker returns with a sedative. Zephyr pretends to be asleep, but when he gets close enough, she drives the improvised weapon into him. Tucker stumbles, hits his head, and collapses unconscious. Wasting no time, Zephyr takes his keys and frees herself. But Tucker regains consciousness. She tries to lock him in, but fails. He lunges at her and jabs her with the sedative, but she kicks him off before it fully takes hold. She knows she has only minutes before it shuts her down. She makes it to the control room and tries calling for help over the radio. No answer. Outside, a cruise ship looms in the distance, her only hope. She rushes out and screams at the top of her lungs, but the distance is too great and the music too loud. Tucker finds her. Zephyr grabs the first thing she can, Tucker's video camera. He grows tense, trying to remain calm, but Zephyr sees no other way and hurls it into the water. Tucker is momentarily frozen with silent rage. Zephyr seizes the chance and dives in. Her strength fades fast. Consciousness slips away, and she stops swimming. Everything seems over, until Tucker hauls her back in with a gaff hook. Meanwhile, Moses refuses to give up the search. When police find a broken surfboard, they expand their search to the ocean. Moses follows his instincts, checking beach surveillance cameras. There it is, Zephyr's truck the night she vanished, and a second vehicle, Tucker's truck, with his company logo. Following a hunch, Moses searches online, finds Tucker's website, and gets his number and address. No one answers his calls, so he drives there himself. At the same time, Tucker docks his boat. Without his camera, he needs a replacement. Zephyr is left bound and gagged as he heads into town. But traffic slows him down. Moses arrives at the dock, boards the boat, and begins to search. At first, it seems empty, until he crouches and hears faint, muffled screams. He smashes a window to get inside, follows the sound, and rips the tape from Zephyr's mouth. There's no time for questions. She orders him to find something to unlock her cuffs and call the police. Moses obeys, but is suddenly slammed into a wall. Tucker is back. He knocks the phone from Moses's hand. The size and strength difference is brutal. Still, Moses grabs a bag filled with heavy objects and swings it into Tucker. He straddles him, choking him with a gaff hook, about to finish him, when a sudden blow knocks him out cold. A friend of Tucker's has arrived, unaware of his dark secret. When he discovers Zephyr locked up, Tucker kills him without hesitation. They leave quickly, low on fuel, heading for a nearby spot. Tucker straps Moses into a harness and cuts a lock of his hair. Zephyr is forced into a high chair, front row for the show. Two bull sharks circle below, the most aggressive killers in the ocean. Tucker hits the switch, lowering Moses until half his body is submerged. His end seems certain, but Zephyr yells at him to stay perfectly still. Moses obeys, and miraculously the sharks drift away. Tucker hauls him back up, but not to set him free. He beats Moses savagely, leaving him bloodied. The scent draws the sharks back. This time, stillness won't save him. Moses begins to descend again, until a distant sound interrupts. A helicopter. Tucker can't risk exposure. The show is postponed. Moses, gravely injured, slips into unconsciousness. Watching him, Zephyr feels crushing guilt. If it weren't for her, he wouldn't be dying. She makes a desperate choice. She grabs her thumb and snaps it with a sickening crack. She hides the pain when Tucker reappears, forcing herself to act indifferent. When he leaves, she tries to break free, but fails. There won't be another lucky break, so she goes further, biting down on her own thumb until it's nearly severed. When Tucker comes back, she hides behind the door, slamming it shut behind him and locking him out. She runs to the control room and fires up the engines. But Tucker has a trick, an escape hatch only he knows. He slips through, reaches the electrical system, and cuts the power. With the boat dead and the shore within sight, Zephyr has one option: swim for it. She locks herself in a room and tries climbing out through a skylight. She's almost through when her harness snags. Tucker bursts in. She stabs his palm and escapes. He recovers quickly and spots her swimming toward the beach. He grabs a harpoon, but the delay is enough for her to get out of range. She's close to shore, but Tucker speeds after her in a motorboat. Zephyr reaches the sand, lungs burning. She calls for help, but her voice is weak. Tucker catches her, clamping a hand over her mouth. Nearby, the sound of laughter and music, oblivious to the struggle happening just meters away, fades as she slips into unconsciousness. She wakes hanging in her harness. Moses is now the spectator. Tucker has the camera ready, and a familiar bull shark returns. Zephyr is lowered until half her body is underwater. Her bleeding hand is the perfect lure, but at the last moment, the bull shark veers away, driven off by something massive. Tucker freezes as a great white shark charges in, scaring the bull shark off. He tries to drive it away but fails, and loses a gaff hook in the process. Zephyr grabs it and starts climbing, but Tucker shoves her back into the water. The fall frees her from the rope. She sinks, the great white closing in. Then, inexplicably, it ignores her. Tucker searches the water, unaware that Zephyr has climbed aboard from the stern. She grabs a harpoon and fires without hesitation. Tucker falls into the sea. Knowing the shark is still nearby, he tries to swim back, but this time it doesn't ignore him. The attack is sudden and final. Zephyr forgets the harpoon is still tethered to him and is yanked into the water. She manages to cut herself free, gets back on board, fires a flare, and within minutes they're found. In the end, Zephyr, still shaken, confesses her feelings to a badly injured Moses. And somehow, that's enough to give him the will to keep fighting.